The emotional impact that my cancer diagnosis and living with pituitary dwarfism and as a cancer survivor has had on me is a great one. It's one of the ones I am constantly dealing with and adapting to. I do have days where I get really sad and I look in the mirror and I'm like, could have been different, but I can't really try to focus on that. If I try to focus on that, I'll live in the negativity. And as a cancer survivor, it's really important to live in the positivity, because if you focus so much on the past and what's happened and what you've made it through, you don't realize you're a fighter, you're a survivor, you're resilient, you're strong.
Okay, well, I'll get right into it. Like I said, thank you so much. I'm very excited to chat with you about this very important month, obviously. And you're teaming up with AFLAC to spread awareness of childhood cancer and just the importance, obviously, of supporting the not only emotional well-being of children, but also just the families as well who are undergoing all the treatments and are there by their sides. This was obviously a perfect partnership for you. Talk to me kind of why it was so important, and in what ways are you giving back and spreading awareness?
Building awareness is one of the most important things I feel like a cancer survivor could do. I think once you survive, you do want to focus on living a normal life, but you also want to make sure that the next person that has to go through cancer doesn't have to go through it the same way you did. We're always adjusting, we're always adapting, we're always changing for the better. And that's why I love working with AFLAC, because they want to focus not just on the physical toll and survivorship, but the mental, social, and emotional toll while during treatment, before treatment, and afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important too. I'm so glad you're raising awareness. How can individuals help when they're unsure on how to support someone that's facing this difficult medical diagnosis?
When you're on the outside, whether it be a family member, a medical doctor, an acquaintance, and a best friend, anything, if you just know someone who's going through treatment or going through cancer, the best thing is to be positive and kind. And if you want to know information, ask questions. There's nothing wrong with asking questions as long as you're gentle about it and aware that you may be emotionally triggering something. Not everyone is through the diagnosis stage and dealing with it. We deal with it like grief. And you have to be aware that people may be going through things and they may not be ready to talk about it, but you're not going to know unless you ask. So the best thing to do is go at it gently, with kindness, and just ask.
Oh, that's so true. I love this. In regards to healthcare, what do you think needs to be done further to improve the emotional support available to children and their families that are dealing with a serious illness like cancer?
When dealing with a serious illness, I think all sides, physical, emotional, mental, social, are important things that we need to take into when we're studying it or when we're watching it play out with someone who's going through a battle. We need to be there in all of those corners because it affects every part of you. It affects every part of your everyday life for the rest of your life. You will always go back to it, whether you survive it or not. And at the end of the day, the best thing is just to have that support and know that you're not alone and you're not a burden for having something that you couldn't control.
Yeah, definitely. And you are living a healthy life now. I'm curious, what are some of the habits that you do on a daily basis to maintain and make sure you have that healthy, optimal health?
When it comes to maintaining a healthy lifestyle or just staying as healthy as possible as a cancer survivor, I am very precautious. If I am feeling unwell, I make sure I track how long it happens. I make sure what the symptoms are. I make sure that it doesn't relate back to my migraines or my brain cancer or my dwarfism. And that's another thing that has happened. With my cancer, I've been physically impacted, emotionally impacted with just side effects. I obviously have a side effect of dwarfism, and that came early on in my life, but was later diagnosed at 16. And I've had emotional battles with anger and just not understanding other people's emotions and unempatheticness. So I think it's extremely important just to make sure that if a child specifically is going through it, to know that that child is going to have all of these normal social life feelings, but also still have to deal with the medical. And you have to find a good balance between that. Because if you don't find a good balance, then their life is predominantly medical and they didn't have what we would call society's normal childhood. And that would later impair them well into adulthood.
Yeah, definitely. And I see the duck behind you. I wanted to ask because I know AFLAC created that special duck to kind of create and help with the emotions with children that are going through that difficult diagnosis. Was there something that you had when you were going through that as a child, or someone who was your biggest support system during your cancer diagnosis?
Fortunately, I had my mom and my dad as my biggest supporters. Unfortunately, I didn't have a duck like the My Special AFLAC duck, which would have been very beneficial. I went through treatment at a very young age. I was not able to talk before my surgery. I was not able to communicate the same way I could communicate now if I undergo cancer and surgery now. So having something like the duck to communicate your emotions, to tell your family what you're feeling, and to know that those feelings are normal would have been so beneficial, because I did have a lack of understanding of what I was going through because I didn't have anyone or anything that could relate to me.
Yeah, definitely. Do you remember, I know you were so young, but do you remember in like what ways your parents like made you, feel special or supported you during that journey?
I don't remember much about the actual treatment process, but I do know that my parents made sure that I got my ice cream if I got my blood transfusions, and I went to get my bone scans and my checkups. We would always go get ice cream or do something rewarding afterwards. I was going through this battle, and yes, it was almost like my job as a child, but I had to reward myself and remember that I'm just like everyone else. At the end of the day, I can go get ice cream with my parents. I can go to the park. I can go and swing on the swings. And those are the things that we did to make sure that I was content with my medical, but also my social life.
Oh, that's great. That's so special. In what ways has the emotional impact of the cancer diagnosis kind of impacted your life as an adult now?
The emotional impact that my cancer diagnosis and living with pituitary dwarfism and as a cancer survivor has had on me is a great one. It's one of the ones I am constantly dealing with and adapting to. I do have days where I get really sad and I look in the mirror and I'm like, could have been different, but I can't really try to focus on that. If I try to focus on that, I'll live in the negativity. And as a cancer survivor, it's really important to live in the positivity, because if you focus so much on the past and what's happened and what you've made it through, you don't realize you're a fighter, you're a survivor, you're resilient, you're strong. You've done all these amazing things that people with an average life and an average health haven't even experienced or understand. And that makes you so amazing at the end of the day. It makes who you are when you look in the mirror a perfect person no matter what physical, emotional, social, or mental scars you have from your cancer. You are whole, you are worth it, and you are amazing.
You are so well-spoken, seriously.
Thank you.
I think we all appreciated too the Q&As that you did on social media this year. All of your fans, you answered a lot of questions for your fans and cleared up and you educated your fans, which I think is so important as well, and you continue to do so. One thing you noted is that people still continue to ask you how old you are. Just,
Yes.
you know, despite your height, you look and you dress like you're 24 years old, and you certainly speak like you're 24 years old as well.
Yeah.
Most recently, what age do you usually get mistaken for?
Now, I mean, I've always gotten around 10 to 12. I guess I look smaller statured, like towards an 8-year-old. But at the end of the day, once you hear me speak and once you have a conversation with me, they're like, so are you 14 and just short? What's the whole situation? And I think building awareness on the side effects that can happen from cancer is so important for situations like mine, because pituitary dwarfism, while it is rare, I'm not the only person that deals with it. And that's why programs that Affleck are doing are so important, because they bring awareness to that. They show you that cancer doesn't just affect what it affected with, whether it was liver or stomach or leukemia or brain cancer. It doesn't just affect that one area. It affects you for the rest of your life, mentally, socially, emotionally, and physically in other ways that you might have not expected. And we're here to support you. And that's one of the reasons I love Affleck so much.
I'm sure people really appreciate you educating and raising awareness about your condition as well. Was there one misconception or that you've encountered the most that you still feel you need to correct people?
I think when it comes to disabilities, differences, and even cancer survivors, once someone hears you went through something or you're a little different than them, or you're physically inept, they think that you're socially, mentally, or emotionally inept as well. And that's a huge stigma that comes with it. And it's one that we need to break. Just because someone was physically impaired doesn't mean they can't have a conversation with you, doesn't mean they don't deserve your respect as a human being and deserve to be talked to like an adult versus a child.
Yeah, definitely. So important. I'm a huge fan of your show. I love the show. We've seen obviously a bit of your personal life and your dating life on the show. Your fans are so rooting for you to find someone if that's something you're interested in. I'm curious, are you actively dating or looking? How is that going?
I am actively dating. I'm always looking for someone who can be as open and honest and accepting of my disability and my cancer survivorship, because those are such important core values to me. And, you know, I found more of a home with people that relate to that than people that don't understand it. And I always want to educate the people that don't understand it, whether it's romantically or friendship-wise. But I have found a better common denominator with those who have experienced trauma in some sense.
Wow, that's great. I'm sure it feels great to be able to relate to someone as well. Your ex, Dan, who we saw on the show as well, he wished you a happy birthday. How was it important for you guys to stay friends? How often do you guys keep in touch?
Dan and I keep in touch quite often. It is important for me to have those friendships, whether it was a burned out relationship or not. It really, at the end of the day, he knows my message, he knows the awareness I want to bring, and he supports that. And at the end of the day, if someone can support me in that, I'm not going to have any ill intent towards them, just like he wouldn't I.
Yeah, that's great. And that's so healthy too, and mature of you. Being 24, I'm like, I can't even imagine the relationships I had at 24. You're very mature.
Thank you.
He also said you two were judged in real life and on the internet, as you know, I'm sure others experience as well. It's awful because of your relationship and how it's not the stereotypical norm. How hard was that for you two to kind of navigate together?
Due to the lack of awareness there was with relationships that are multi-height or disability and average, there was a lot of backlash. And you have to have a backbone. And thankfully, because of my cancer, I had a backbone towards it. But at the end of the day, overall awareness would have helped that. Spreading the awareness would have helped the people that were being judgmental be less judgmental. And that's why programs like Affleck are not only important to the cancer and the social and the mental and the emotional impact you go through during cancer, but helps with survivorship and helps break those stigmas that will eventually help break the dating stigmas that come with survivorship.
Yeah, definitely. Are you still seeing those stigmas as you continue to date in this new chapter? And how do you navigate that?
I think at the end of the day, not everyone knows about dwarfism, not everyone knows what happens with cancer survivorship, and not everyone knows about me. So I don't expect everyone to be open-minded and accept it right out of the gate. But what I do expect is for people, once I tell you who I am and what I do with my life and why the reason is, how much ever information I want to give you, that you have that respect.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. If we're fortunate to see another season of your show, which I am crossing my fingers, what do you think we can expect from this next chapter in your life?
The next chapter in my life is really focused on building cancer awareness, like with people like Aflac, and using my followers and my life really just to show people that cancer doesn't just affect you after you survive. And at the end of the day, I am working on other things. So you see like my fashion line, it's almost in manufacturing. That would be there. You'll see more of the dating, of course, but you'll really see me building awareness and helping other disabled people, different people, and cancer patients, because that's really where I found a home.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you about your clothing line too, because I think it's great that you are kind of filling those gaps with the lack of diversity in the fashion world. What can we expect from that? And how do you hope people feel when they put your clothes on?
Overall, I feel confident and happy and included when I put my clothes on. So that's how I want anyone else to feel. And the goal is to embrace everyone, including disabilities, differences, and eventually I want to do like adaptive for like people that have test tube or tubes out of their nose or something, just accessorizing. But right now we are focused on a shorter stature. We are focused on making the one outfit into manufacturing. I think I'm starting manufacturing in the next couple weeks for it. But at the end of the day, my heart is going towards making it a huge embracing company and just eventually making it more accepting for people with cancer or with differences or a disability, feeling comfortable in the world that we're in.
That's so important. Wow. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see everything you're doing. I really hope that we get another season and I get to see all of your clothing and the journey of that. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you as well.